It was a fine morning on the Isle, the sun beating through the holes in the wall as Zikar and I waited for my companion and second-in-command, Sofia, to arrive with a crucial component for the machine. Hours passed, and my patience was running thin when, not Sofia, but Florence, entered the hut, escorted by none other than Brachery, a mole working within the insurgency under Zikar. Becoming tired of the clandestine life and constant guilt of lying to his sister, he'd given it up and instead came to our aid. "Anik's really gone and done it now," Brachery exclaimed. The speed that he had learned our language baffled me, outpacing Zikar and the other Pangeans who had been learning it for years. The fellow was a natural. A place in the homeland rested on his ability to learn formality, but influences know his immense prodigiousness would be an asset. I listened as Brachery retold the events of the morning. Anik, it seemed, had ambushed Sofia while she was bringing me the last component needed to complete my machine, and was now holding her hostage. I attempted to subdue my feelings at the news, but that was an impossible endeavour. I cackled, showing confusion on all who were present. Oh, if Anik thinks she has Sofia hostage, a nasty surprise will befall her. The situation is quite the opposite, I spoke, through laughs and tears, as the thought of Anik attempting to intimidate Sofia, only to be met with brutal nonchalance. After all, Sofia was, at one point, my personal bodyguard. A rough, female scream echoed throughout the settlement, dropping my confidence. I turned to the whole wall with growing anxiety. Sofia was never in danger. But could it be? Moving without thinking, I grabbed Brachery and threw us both through the hole. We fell for far too long, for Brachery nullified gravity's pull on us. I directed him to take us to where the scream had come from, and we floated towards a warehouse nestled on a Ciro's platform. Within 10 minutes, we had landed, and placed a foot onto the cloudy surface, apprehensive that it might fall through. I was unsurprised, though, that it held my weight. A further scream echoed through the sky, seeming to bounce off the air itself. We ran towards the door, but a wall of force knocked me back. Brachery and I stood, confused, and my heart palpitated in an extreme cocktail of nervousness and altitude. We could not enter the building. It was then that a shadow cast itself over us, blocking light from the sun. That silhouette I recognised without a doubt. Zikar descended onto the clouds. He grunted to Brachery, using their language to keep me in the dark, and he marched towards the entrance. The wall gave way to him, and he walked unobstructed into the warehouse. When I tried to follow, Brachery barred my entrance. I quickly realised that protesting was a hopeless endeavour, as Brachery was steadfast in his loyalty to Zikar, as he was immovable. "Anik is our responsibility," Brachery tried to comfort me, in his uncanny rendition of my language. "Zikar will deal with her." So it was that we sat on the clouds, awaiting Zikar's return with Sofia. Raised voices of confrontation escaped from inside, but never the sounds of battle. Eventually, Zikar returned to us, with Sofia laid over his shoulder. To say she was in a bad way would be a disservice to her torture. It was as though she had bathed in blood. Bruises peppered her body, which was contorted at unusual angles, her extremities rendered inoperable. Yet, as expected, she had remained conscious. How Zikar had handled the situation, I would never know, met only with a wistful look into the distance, accompanied by silence. I never saw Anik leave that warehouse, and a strange sensation that she was not a handled threat loomed in the furthest clouds. At Zikar's homestead, we found Sofia's component damaged beyond repair. As protocol demanded, Florence and I joined hands and stood, shoulders touching. Florence waved her arms, mimicking sound waves as she channeled and produced the electromagnetic force needed to transmit my thoughts to the Oersted. Zikar and Brachery were bewildered as I planned my message. My thoughts raced towards my forehead, barely contained by my dome. I felt them flow and convert into radio waves, pulsing towards the shore. Our formation wavered, and Florence placed her hands on the floor with care. The current dispelled from them, rounded by the rocks. We received word from the ship. It would take 5 years for a replacement component to come from the homeland. Depressing, the situation set in, stoked by Sofia's state. It took at least a month before motivation returned. Once she had healed, however, our walks around the settlement revealed to us that the Pangeans lacked many of the technological essentials of the homeland. And so, with nothing better to do with our time, we set about creating the technologies needed to improve the lives of our newfound neighbours. One of our people can revolutionize a country. 3 of us can work miracles. With Folderites, we created light bulbs. We created automated farming equipment for the Isle's farm tower. But, most importantly, and perhaps controversially, we built an academy of electromagnetism. By the time the component arrived, the Isle existed in the future. Houses had light in the darkness, and many of the newer generation had become disciples of a most sacred magic. Zikar had found a wife and sired a child. Trippy was his name. He would become our most prestigious student. It was fortuitous that both Zikar and Brachery were in our camp, for without their mastery of Newtonmancy, Zanchu, as I discovered the Pangeans called it, the components wouldn't have made it to us. Even after all we did for them, though, entire clusters of homes remained unlit. Specialist farms emerged using only manual labour, and many students from the academy saw daily harassment.